Let's start with a little story on George Washington. During the French and Indian War, he obviously fought on the side of the British against the French and obviously the Indians. One particular battle was at Fort Duquesne, which is Pennsylvania. In that battle, for 2 hours, the Indians that were against the British pretty much tried to isolate all the officers and shoot them. Well, out of 86 officers, 85 were killed. George Washington remained on a horse the entire battle. Several were shot out from under him. He'd get another one to get back on again. After the 2 hours, they basically retreated. Washington was the only officer left on his side. Well, he wrote a letter when he went home to his wife talking about his jacket, which had 4 bullet holes in it. And he just basically thanked God, and he said he had obviously must have had divine protection. And that's great. 15 years later, he went back. This was after the Revolutionary War, everything was done. He went back to Fort Duquesne. An Indian chief had heard he was coming, so he traveled to meet him. And after traveling many miles, he was presented to Washington, and he said, "I was at that battle, and I came all this way to find out who was the guy who God loved so much that he wouldn't allow die that day." He told him that he'd shot at him at least 15 times himself. He told all the other Indians under him to do so, and eventually he said, "Stop. He must be protected by the gods. Don't do it anymore." So I tell that story because until 40 years ago, that was in our textbooks, in our elementary textbooks in our school system. Another book that was used was called the New England Primer, which was basically it was an instruction on how to read. It started with the ABCs and it progressed from there. That was used from 1690 to 1900 in our country as the basic textbook on teaching children how to read. That was also removed they changed it, the version of it, but eventually that was removed about 40 years ago as well. George Washington's farewell address until that same time frame, about 40 years ago, was required reading. There was a textbook on that alone. I mean, his farewell address, not his inaugural. And in it, he thanked God at least 4 times for the winning the war, the blessings that our country received from him, and he said at one point that religion and morality are the 2 great pillars of politics, and without either one of them, a country can't stand. That was studied until fairly recently. It's back in textbooks now, minus the religious parts. Okay. There are many people now that come out and say that our founders were deists, atheists, or agnostic. They didn't believe in a God. Simply untrue if you read their writings and the books that they wrote and the letters to each other. In the 70s, the University of Houston did a study. Took 10 years, and they went through 15,000 different documents, letters and such, that the founders wrote to each other, the debates they had in Congress, and they found out that of the 15,000 documents, there were 3,100, a little over 3,100 quotes from directly from other persons or other books. The Bible was quoted a third of the time, and then the majority of other people that they quoted were quoting the Bible. So the idea that our founders didn't rely heavily upon religion is it's insane, and Christianity being the preferred religion and what they used. There's a law book that became basically the staple for a century in our country.